Okay, Dennis Young here, series number two. Special guest today, Roger Clark Miller, and he's done work with Mission of Burma and all types of solo music. And thanks for coming on, Roger.
It's my pleasure.
So I'd like to hear about your early music, how you got involved with uh, what influenced you.
Right. Um, I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I took piano lessons when I was a kid, and I enjoyed it. And then when I was in sixth grade, the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, and before that, I was just a kid who liked to climb trees and run around. After that, I was a rocker. Literally,
Oh,
like
okay.
in 3 minutes, I was a rocker. And why was I playing piano? This classical music, who cares? Why aren't I a rocker? And so all that early British invasion stuff was mind-boggling. And I remember in
Oh,
six
it was.
bits and pieces by the Dave Clark Five, I was really into it, and everybody else in my class was going, "But they're not the
Oh,
Beatles.
okay.
They're not really that good." So my precedent for working outside the norm was pretty much established by sixth grade. And then I took guitar lessons, and me and my two brothers, Lawrence and Benjamin, were
Okay.
experienced musicians in
Right.
their own right. Uh, we just played guitars all the time, and we had two or three other friends who played guitar. So we were always albums every day. We'd listen to Stones records and figure out the guitar riffs. We didn't. There's no. You didn't Google the tab,
Right, right. Not back. Right. True.
and
Not
figure it
back
out.
then.
Once you figure out a few of these tricks, you go, oh, a lot
Right.
of songs are like that. That's what 145 is. Anyway, so I got into it, and then in the Summer of Love, which was '67, between my ninth grade and 10th grade, that that May, I had a band with my two brothers and two other friends, and we did like 13th Floor Elevators, Yardbirds, Love,
Oh, okay.
Grateful Dead. I was in ninth grade going to,
Right.
and so that was pretty cool. I mean, you know, we were working with what was the forefront of rock music at that time. Psychedelia was just kicking in. Uh, it was just amazing. I was a total
I can
elevators.
imagine. And were you
Uh,
writing original songs too at this point, or was it mostly cover?
it was covers. I hadn't what you'd say found my voice yet. Like I would like write a knockoff of the Seeds, and I'd write a knockoff of the Kinks, but none of them were very good. I mean, hell, I was in ninth grade, going to 10th grade. But that got me addicted to playing. We had two shows that spring and summer. We played a friend's garage and a friend's attic.
Oh, how about that?
So those were my first two shows. Like
Got to start somewhere.
you do,
That's
and
neat. And
yeah, it
then,
was
um,
fun.
and then gradually, would you move to? How did you meet the Mission of Burma guys? That's a interesting
Right, right.
story to hear.
Well, I'll make a quick jump from
Sure.
there. Like a few years later, I,
Okay.
I was in a band playing like kind of like Cream and Hendrix knockoffs that I wrote. They were like great.
Right.
I was better, and then something happened, and I found my voice, and that was Sprout and Layer with my two
How about
brothers
that?
and the guitar, bass, drums, and trumpet. A very psychedelic Sid Barrett influence, but by the end of 1970, psychedelia was going nowhere, and the band folded, and I couldn't get a gig. And basically, from 1970 to 1978, I was just kind of lost. I went to music school, I did various things,
Right.
and, and then when punk kicked in '77, my brothers were in Destroy All Monsters with Ron Ashton and Michael Davis, but they, I didn't think that was the band for me. So they made a couple records with them, and so I moved to Boston to become a piano technician.
Okay.
But as soon as I got to Boston, I saw this advert for what was essentially the moving parts, and I thought they
Oh,
needed a
okay.
bass player. I said, "Here's my chance!" Like there's the punk scene was vital in Boston. Like
Right.
it was posters, and it was so
Oh, I'm
different
sure.
from
Yeah.
a college town. And I said, this is my chance. This is my last chance to make a mark with rock music.
How about that?
And I called up the moving parts. I thought they needed a bass player, and they said, "No, we need a guitarist." I said, "Okay, then I'll play guitar."
There
You
you
know,
go. Why
it
not?
was that extreme, and that's why I'm known as a guitarist now. If they needed a bass player, I'd probably be known as a bass
Oh, how about that?
because mostly I was a bass player before then. And then when the year in the moving parts, Clint was the bass player, Clint Conley.
Right.
He hadn't written any songs, but he really bonded with me on mine. We had Eric's stuff was super brainy, and so the band broke up. Basically, I later formed Birdsong's The Massasoit with Eric.
Oh, how about that?
So
Okay.
it's an interesting thing. And me and Clint, then like fall of '78, we knew we were going to have a band together, and the band started in February of '79 after we auditioned Pete. And it took us running through a bunch of drummers, and we finally just settled on Pete. And our first gig was April Fool's Day,
Oh, how
1979.
about that? You were right at the start of that post-punk era.
Yeah,
Punk
yeah.
was right there.
In a way, we've been called pre-post-punk.
How about that? Yeah, you
Like,
probably
we're
were.
right in the cracks between punk
Right.
and that thing.
That's true.
And
Because
it's,
New York was really vibrant around 80, 81, 82. That was
yeah,
83. Those were like some of the big years for post-punk.
yeah, we did, Burma always did well in New York, for which I'm very grateful. In Boston, most places gave us very confused responses. Like when Academy Fight Song, Max Ernst single had been released, we played, uh,
Great song.
thank you, we played Minneapolis, and the review said, they can't figure out whether they're a pop band or an art band. These guys are
No,
confused.
that's funny.
And so that was, people couldn't figure it out. And now, I mean, we don't play anymore, but in our second incarnation, we'd play, and we could play Academy right into Max, and nobody batted an eye. They were
Now,
just
did you
like,
play CBGBs also?
yeah, yeah, we played
Yeah, we
CBs
did too.
a few times. Yeah,
That was a fun place.
yeah, yeah, yes, and that was with Liquid, right?
Yep, yeah. And the sound system was great there.
Yeah, it
Oh, I
was
love this. And the back room there for the bands with all that graffiti. Classic. Oh,
class.
really, really fun place. And then you were on the what, Ace of Hearts label back then?
Yeah,
I didn't know
Rick.
much about them.
It's a small Boston label. The most known, us, Mission Burma, the Liars,
Right.
LRES. They were actually quite big for a while. They're the Neats. Then he released my next band, Birdsongs of the Mesozoic, and so
Okay.
he put out the Neighborhood single. The
Oh,
band,
okay. I know them.
they were like a really exceptional band. They're kind of power pop punk. I mean, it's hard to tell how to call it, but they were a really wonderful band.
How about that?
They could have gone farther, I think. But, you know, who can
Yeah,
control?
what are you gonna do? Now your first EP, it was like an EP, right? Your first one, Signal Calls and Marches, was that your first
No,
record?
well, the first record was Academy Fight Song, Max
Oh,
Ernst,
right. Okay.
the single, uh,
Right.
which got mixed reviews. In the NME, they said they can't. They sound like a cross between the Police and the Jam. It's like,
Hmm.
fuck you.
Come on.
And but we were on the cover of New York Rocker, 10 best
Oh,
singles.
that was a big magazine back then.
Yeah, yeah, it
Paper.
was a
That was
big
big.
deal. We were up there like Pylon, Dub,
Oh, wow.
or whatever. So it was like the next wave was coming up, and we were kind of leading it, or we were part of it. I can't say we were leading it. And so the next record we made was Signals, Calls, and Marches, uh, which had the hit Revolver on it, but also some other, like a lot of songs that still, like This Is Not a Photograph, Fame and Fortune, Red, All World Cowboy Romance is an incredibly beautiful song. That's one of the few songs where it's collaboratively written. The main theme, and I developed each.
And then you did a full-length record too, right? VS, was that
Yeah,
after that?
yeah. In '82, the next record was Verses.
Oh, Versus,
That's
okay.
how we refer to it.
Looks like a V2, but Versus, okay.
Well, it is a VS, but there's a period, so you can call it whatever you want. I forgive you or myself for whatever we've done. Yeah, and that one was the first one that really kind of captured the chaos and the real aesthetic of the band. More anarchy. The other stuff was all kind of stayed, like very well organized sonically, and this was a little more out of control. Uh, didn't have the big hits like Revolver Academy, but it's the album that people cite.
Yeah,
because
it's good. It's really good. Well done.
thank you very much.
Yeah, I enjoyed listening to it. And then you guys had a reunion too. Like you guys, did you quit for a while and then you came back for a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, in '82, I started to develop pretty bad tinnitus, and I
Okay.
knew that time was running out, and we've folded in spring of '83. Our last show, our very last show, was in Staten Island with Bill.
Oh, what about that with Pill? How
Yeah,
about that?
yeah, about that. But at that point, they'd lost Wobble, and
Yeah.
so it
Oh,
was.
forget it. I'm going to be interviewing Martin Atkins next week,
Oh yeah,
the
great.
original drummer. So,
Yeah,
yeah, they weren't the same.
he's a fun guy to talk to.
Yeah, I can't wait. And so, yeah, have your Mission of Burma come back for like shows on and off, or
So what happened was, we folded in '83. It's kind of a big deal in Boston. Nobody else really noticed. And then gradually, this kind of groundswell of
how
interest.
about that?
So it became, I mean, I'm not saying we're anything like the Velvet Underground or anything like that, but we're one of those kind of bands that the longer it is since we played, the more important we appeared to be.
I know that. We're the same thing.
I'm
I
sure,
know that.
I'm sure you do.
Oh yeah.
So we were often asked to play, and we would always say no because it's just silly. It's like why we just played just to do it. And the joke was, you could pay us and we'd play cards. We'd get
How
them
about
to
that?
play cards. That was what we would state. But then something really peculiar happened in 2001, rather pivotal year for many reasons. And from the punk rock reasoning, Joey Ramone died, Wire
Hmm.
reformed, uh, our band Could Be Your Life came out.
Oh, okay.
And then somebody called me up, I can't remember who it was now, and said they wanted to do this big punk extravaganza at the Lincoln Center in New York.
How about that?
And,
Okay.
I was going to just say no. And I said, this is big enough that I should ask, Clint, and he'll say no. And I asked Clint, and he goes, well, let's do it. I go, Clint, what are you saying? Well, I'll ask Pete. So I said, well, I'll just ask Pete. And of course, he'll say no. And Pete said, no, we should do it. And I go,
How
well,
about that? Uh
I'm
oh.
outvoted, so we have to play.
How
Uh,
about that?
and but we decided I contacted Mark Cates, who was our manager. He wasn't our manager before, but he became our manager then because he'd been working for Geffen Records and other stuff. Uh, and I told him about it, and I remember calling him up on the phone saying, Mark, Mission of Burma is going to reform, play some shows. And literally, for about a minute, he was just sputtering. He couldn't talk on the phone.
How about
It
okay?
was so mind-boggling and unexpected. And I thought, well, okay, that's a good sign, if he's excited.
Right.
So what we thought was going to be, we decided to take it in our own hands. We'd play one show in Boston and one show in New York, and that would be it. The one show in Boston turned out to be a sold-out 1,800 seat theater.
Wow.
3 shows at the Paradise, or maybe 2 shows, 500, and 2 sold-out shows at the Irving Plaza.
Oh
So there.
man.
And literally, the last time we'd played the Paradise in 1980, early '83, we were told there were so few people. We were told we could never play there again.
Ah, how
And 18 years later, we
great
saw
to
it
show them up.
2 times.
Great.
What it was we did. And the what we decided that we were going to do to make it so we weren't just flogging a dead horse
Right.
is we were all going to bring in one new song for these shows. So we all did. And after we played the show, it was in New York, and it was mind-boggling. Like the response of the audience, it was terrifying almost. It's like I can't,
Wow.
because when we folded in '83, like we'd play like Chapel Hill, and there'd be like 50 people, and there hardly anyone would even move after a
Hmm.
song. Just stand there.
Yeah, I
And
can
I'm not
imagine
criticizing
that.
Chapel Hill. Like this
Right.
was everywhere except for maybe New York, San Francisco, Lawrence, Kansas. We did well, but mostly
Oh, how about
it's
that?
pretty lame responses. Detroit, Ann Arbor were good. And so this was just like, this is hard to believe.
That's a phenomenon. That's really something.
it was really something. And then Bob Weston took over Martin Swope's tape. We had a tape loop operator, and Bob Weston was the likely guy to fill in Martin's boots, which were pretty
Right.
big, because Martin decided he didn't want to do it. And then Bob was playing in Shellac, Steve's band. I was at his memorial just recently. It was
Oh, sorry to hear that.
very intense.
I imagine.
I was really glad I went. Uh, but then Steve was the curator of Altimo's parties in the southern part of England, and
Okay.
he said, "Well, why don't you guys come here?" And we had never played Europe back in the day, so it's
How
okay.
about that? I
Yeah,
didn't know
so
that.
we'll play England, and then we got an offer to play San Francisco, and then pretty soon we were writing more songs, and then we ended up playing for like 14 years and recording.
Oh,
So
wow. Huh.
you can
Well,
kind of blame Steve for that in a way if you want.
we had our reunion in 2003 at a knitting factory,
Oh, perfect.
and we weren't going to play. We practiced and said, "No, we're not going to do it." We got calls from the guy, "Please play." So we did play, and then we had a little tour after that. Because, like you, we weren't going to play. I have like one show. That's it. But the place was packed. So then we got other offers. So we played a little longer.
Wow,
But that's something. How you never know.
you never know. It's a fact. So you just kind of roll with it and do that which is reasonable. And when we broke up in 2015, I'd written a couple songs and no one else was writing songs. And I said, maybe we're done, you guys. And we all just, after a little bit of banter, go, yeah, I think that's it. Okay, great. That was really fun.
Yeah, it's a shame because I saw your name always advertised in the Village Voice for shows. I never got a chance to see you guys. We were so busy doing our own thing. I really didn't have time. But I saw you. You always were headlining someplace there in the city at that time. There were some great clubs,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
opened and closed pretty fast.
Did you ever play? It's not called Triad. Try.
Tier three?
Yes, Tier Three. Thank
Oh
you.
yeah, that was our first show
Oh,
ever.
excellent.
Actually, second show. That was the first show Ed Bauman saw us from 99 Records and signed us.
great.
But we had a show before that in the village, that way down in the alphabet uh, number streets at a place, and then we played Tier Three, and that's how we met Ed.
Oh, that's great.
And
I
then we played Hurrahs after that.
Yeah, yeah, that's where I think our first New York show, actually it was somewhere else. Once we got established, Hurrah was our venue.
Yeah,
You know.
Ed's brother Bill was the DJ there.
Hmm.
Bill Bauman. He was really good. He actually taped songs for our first EP. Were recorded live there.
Oh,
Three
excellent.
songs. So there's a we were both in the same
Yeah, yeah.
area there. Bands were doing the same thing at the same
If,
time.
if I had been in New York, I would have, there were so many bands happening in New York.
Oh, I know.
But we play so much that unless you're playing with a band, it's hard to
Right.
see a band.
And now before we move on, you had a documentary about the group. It says not a photograph. Is that the name of it?
Yeah, it's called
That's
not.
pretty neat.
It's it was interesting in that it was supposed to be a documentary. We basically destroyed it, but it was supposed to
Oh,
be like a band comes back, they play shows, and then they stop again. It was a nice arc.
right.
Instead, the band came back and then kept playing, so there was no real ending to the movie.
Oh, how about that? I like that.
It's it's okay. It was like we were again all that time we were playing New York and those first New York and Boston shows. I'd be driving in the van. We were always being videoed. It was like it was so insane. It was just nuts.
Well, those are crazy days, driving in vans. We never had any roadies. We had to load up everything ourselves.
Yeah, we always traveled with one other person, but we did the gear moving ourselves, of course.
But Roger, you have so much other music here. I mean, wow, you've done so much. I mean, Maximum Electric piano, binary system. You also did the Anvil Orchestra. It's called.
Anvil Orchestra, that's
Right.
the
What,
silent
what,
film.
what do you want to talk about? Some of these, like maybe start off with this Maximum Electric piano. What's that about? What
when
was
I
that?
was when I was in Bird Songs of the Mesozoic, I had somehow got just enough money to buy one of those Yamaha CP70 electric pianos that has strings and pickups on it.
Okay.
So it had real strings. It wasn't like metal tines like a Fender Rhodes, but you could run it through guitar effects. And
Oh, okay.
you could also put bolts and alligator clips for like for prepared piano, and you could strum the strings.
Oh, how about that?
So, and then a friend of mine in 1983 told me about the Electro Harmonix 16-second digital delay, which was the
Hmm.
first commercial looper. And it could drop an octave, you could speed it up, you could turn it into a delay, and you can make it go backwards. And so
Oh, that
my
sounds neat.
piano work was basically a one-person orchestra,
Oh,
kind
wow.
of, and and I played clubs a lot, but I probably should have been more like playing art venues, I suppose. I mean, I did those too, like the ICA in Boston, but it was more clubs. And sometimes people were, well, why isn't there a drummer? Well,
Yeah, right. That's true.
I've got bolts and alligator clips on the strings. Those are drums. Come on.
That's true. You're right. And then you do a lot with solo guitar too, right? Solo electric guitar shows
Yeah,
that you're doing now, right?
yeah. Currently, I refer to it as a solo electric guitar ensemble.
Oh, neat.
It sounds kind of a little over the top, but it's. I have I play four different guitars. Three of them are really inexpensive lap steels, but they're on legs and they have six strings. One is tuned to a all E unison, like a Glenn Brocka kind of tuning. The other
Right.
two tenor and bass strings on them, and there I have alligator clips and sometimes two strings with a bolt in between, and so they sound percussive and bass-like, and a little bit like a koto. I would say like Harry Parch might be a reference point.
Oh, wow. That sounds
Uh,
neat.
and then I have a Strat around my neck, a regular guitar, and then I have a bunch of stereo effects, and then I have a looping machine that's really elaborate. You can layer up, you can have different tempo loops, some of them dropping octaves, some going backwards, and then I organize the music all by dreams. I've
Oh,
kept dream
wow.
journals since right after high school,
Right.
and I find a dream that's got some drama to it, and I basically you're basically a soundtrack for the dream, but it's everything because you don't see anything. So it's just
Oh,
pure
wow.
music by the time you hear it. I'm the only one that really has any idea what's going on because I'm the only one who saw it.
That sounds neat. Now, do you tour with this? Are you doing a tour?
Yeah, I mean, I don't tour per se. I just played. I've gone down the East Coast. Uh,
Okay.
haven't played New York yet, oddly enough. In October, I'm playing Toronto, Rochester, and Ithaca, New York, back to back. I'm really, really excited about it.
Hi, about that. You should be. It sounds like a really interesting uh, music you're creating, a real soundscape of sounds.
Yeah, and it's it combines my interest in dreams and surrealism and my interest in expanding guitars and the looping stuff, which I've been doing since Maximum Electric Piano in '83. Uh, and the reviews of my first album, which is called Eight Dream Interpretations for Solo Electric Guitar Ensemble, uh,
Wow.
it it got like wildly favorable reviews in like Premier Guitar, Pop. What's that? What's that magazine from the UK? Pop something. It's big.
So that's great. Is this
And
recently you got
yeah,
reviews on
well,
that?
yeah, 22, 23 when the record came out. Mojo,
Right.
all the stuff. Like really, really,
That's a big one too.
yeah. They really understood that I was doing something different. And I have a new record of that coming out next February. They're on Kineiform Records, a smallish label, but really, really solid label out of
I know those guys.
yeah
In
in
fact,
Maryland.
I just interviewed Paul Sears. He's with the Muffins. I don't know if
Oh
you've heard of
yeah,
them. He was that was a great interview. They're on that label.
yeah,
He
yeah,
did
yeah,
a lot of work with them. In fact, well, he's on a new label now, but he did a bunch of records on that label.
yeah. He's Steve Fagenbaum's he's a really straight guy, and if he believes in you, he'll do everything he can possibly do. You know, and
That's great.
it,
Yeah, that's a good label.
yeah, it's cool.
Now, what are you doing with this orchestra? Is this project still going on? That you
Yeah,
used to,
yeah. I mean, it was originally the Alloy Orchestra, and then
right,
one of the members quit, so we changed the name to the Anvil Orchestra.
right.
And
That's neat.
it's a most we accompany silent movies. That's all we do.
Oh,
I
okay.
play keyboards, like orchestral keyboards, and during the course of a composition, of a score to a film, they're usually pretty organized. I might change my patches 50 times to strings, to French horns, to crazy like prepared piano sounds. And then
Oh, okay.
another guy, Terry Donahue, plays drums, accordion, glockenspiel, and pieces of junk metal, and he's like bowing, musical saw. And so between the two of us, there's this very organic way of interacting uh, with silent film, and we also do pure improvs like the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. But we do Metropolis a lot. We're playing Metropolis in Silver Spring in November.
Oh,
That,
okay.
that's always a huge draw. We kick its ass. Just saying.
I heard that section of Maryland is such a big, progressive area at that time. So Paul was telling me too that they're really into like progressive music there,
Yeah,
down in Maryland, down where Steve owns that label, that area.
yeah. And then Rhizome DC is just right down the road. So
Right, right.
Rhizome's a really, really great place.
That is pretty neat. Now, anything else? One more thing about the chamber music too. You're involved with that too? Do you just do
Mm-hmm.
something with chamber music?
I was in the interim period between, let me get my right, between Sprout and Layer in '69 and Mission of Burma in '79. In there, I went to music school, and
Oh, how about
I
that?
was a composition major, and I can write out scores from start to finish,
Oh, okay.
you all that kind of stuff. And for some reason, I guess I was looking for something else to do besides Mission of Burma when we reformed, because Mission of Burma was not a full-time band; it was very much a part-time band. I needed something else to do, so for some reason, I started writing orchestral music again. My brother Ben had been writing for a saxophone orchestra, and that kind of helped inspire me to do that. And then Steve Drury, who was the head of the more experimental music at the New England Conservatory, knew of me. He was a Mission of Burma fan. This guy, you
How
know,
about that?
and
Better
so
yet.
he had me bring in one of my pieces. So I've had pieces performed at New England Conservatory. I've
Oh,
sat in
cool.
with a new music group doing like Stockhausen and Earl Brown. I'm playing electric guitar, getting feedback
Wow.
with an amp that's this big, so the feedback is no louder than the violin player, but I'm still getting feedback out
And
of
you're
the.
reading music with this
Uh,
too?
though for those the ones with Stockhausen, it's graphic scores and stuff, but the other stuff,
Right.
I set the Epic of Gilgamesh into like a 25-minute composition, and I played in three movements, string quartet, French horn,
Holy
percussion,
smoke.
chords, conductor, and I'm playing the electric guitar part on stage.
Wow.
I'm watching the guy go like, Steve. I'm looking at Steve, and I'm hammering these chords because you can tell there's a little bit of Mission of Burma in the performance.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm just looking down at my hands. And I'm going, I can't believe we're doing this in the conservatory.
How
And I
about
look,
that?
and I have this kind of crazed smile on my face, and Steve Drury, the conductor, is
Yeah.
looking right at me with the exact same crazed smile on his face. And it's like, that's just so cool.
Wow. You've had one fantastic career. I mean, you're really something. I mean, done a lot of work and still doing it.
And I've managed to eke out a living. Like
Uh, that is even better yet.
that's pretty amazing. And like 4 or 5 times, I'd say, I thought, this is it. I'm going to go down.
Right.
And then
Oh,
something would happen.
not yet. You got more music to do. You're
Yeah,
not ready yet. You got more music.
yeah.
You're too talented yet. You got more to give to the world.
Thank you very much. I
You do.
appreciate
You absolutely do. I didn't
it.
realize how much music you did till I started looking you up. Wow. Holy smoke. And I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you
Thank you
very
for,
much. I
oh,
appreciate it.
anytime. Now, where can they find your music on Cuneiform Records, and where else should I put down to find your music?
I have a Bandcamp site myself for like my earlier records that are now out of
Okay.
Maximum Electric Piano, Roger Miller's Exquisite Corpse.
Okay.
guitar. But I think it's Roger Clark Miller. It might be Roger C. Miller Bandcamp. But if you go to my website,
Okay.
rogermiller.com, you can go to all those. You can find in my discography, which is pretty extensive. There's a lot.
It is.
There's a place where I'm selling like I think about 10 of my out of print albums, and
Okay.
the stuff is easy to find. Then Cuneiform has 3 or 4 of my records. And just like, yeah, I keep moving.
Oh, that's great. Well, we'll find you, and I'm sure Mission of Burma fans will be maybe finding this and finding this very interesting. But
Well,
Roger, I want to thank you for your time. I'll be
thanks,
putting this up in a few days, and thanks again for doing this.
thanks very much. Totally my pleasure.
Anytime. Have a great day. See you.
Honor
Bye
you.
bye. Take care. Bye bye.